Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Swan Survival. We are expanding our expressway here, and welcome to Fusion's Ramblings. In this series, we take a few minutes and we just talk about some random topics. Usually, I would say whatever comes to mind, but we actually plan out what we're going to talk about. Well, not really plan out, but we choose a topic and then we just talk about it. And today's topic is all about the repercussions of where you live from an environmental standpoint. And I'm talking about natural disasters. We hear about them all the time. They make big news. Everybody gets excited or panicked or depressed or sad or whatever, angry. Um, because of natural disasters. Understandable, because if something happens and you lose your home or you lose your job, your career, you lose friends or loved ones, obviously there's emotions involved, right? Um, and it's a serious matter. But then the question comes, and I understand that not all of us have the choice really here sometimes because of our circumstances. But it's like, well, why did you live there in the first place? And I'll give you some examples of why I say that. And of course, part of this is down to society as a human race, and some of it's just how we operate or how we do things, um, you know, from a perspective of living. Um, as I move my keyboard so the cat doesn't try to lay on the buttons. Um, and that is, where are most of the towns, cities located? And even individual houses a lot of times, right? Well, they are along coastlines and along rivers. What are rivers known for? Flooding. Is there any river in the world that never has flooded in its entire history? No. At some point, every river that exists in the world has flooded. Why? Because it happens. It's natural. It's part of what nature does. There's excessive rain. There's not enough, underground storage for the water to drain off into, um, whatever the situation is, right? Um, the river's going to flood. At some point, if you live in a location that is near a river, and I'm talking about a location where you are in what is considered the alluvial floodplain, right? Which is usually a very large area that can extend several hundred feet above the river level. At some point, you're going to be flooded. It doesn't matter. And even if you do not live in that floodplain area, instead, let's say you live on the side of a mountain or you live up higher, at some point, you're still going to be affected by flooding because of water runoff. The water is going to go downhill and it's going to, find the path of least resistance. And often that's along streets and roads, and that's where the houses are as well. And so you're going to get flooded. It's going to happen. If you live near the ocean, at some point, a storm is going to happen. You know those once in a century storms, as they call them. You're going to get flooded from storm surge. Or, of course, if you live in, hurricane, typhoon prone areas, it doesn't matter. At some point, a typhoon or hurricane is going to come along and you're going to get flooded from the storm surge. Um, and then we could talk about tsunamis as well for the oceans and even lakes, because you could have a landslide that goes into a lake and causes a tsunami in the lake. At some point, you're going to be flooded by a tsunami. And I know I giggle at that, but it's just a fact. And so it surprises me when I watch the news and, people go, how could this ever happen? And, things like that. And it's like, well, look at where you live, right? You made the choice to live there. I mean, it's not, duh, hello. At some point, it's going to happen. That's all there is to it. But this, and it's not just flooding. I know I'm giving examples of flooding right now, but it's other things as well. I mean, if you live on a mountain or on a hillside or at the bottom of a hillside or the bottom of a mountain, at some point there's going to be a rock slide, a mudslide, a landslide. Um, that is going to happen either, for whatever reasons, either caused by an earthquake, caused by, runoff, caused by, too much rain, caused by gravity, caused by weathering. At some point, it's going to happen, and, your house might be in the way of those rocks, of that mud. Same would go for, an avalanche. If live in snow country, and you live in a valley that has, steep hills, steep mountains, or even mildly steep hills and mountains, at some point an avalanche is going to happen. We could even take it simpler. A tree is going to fall, no matter what. Every tree that exists will fall at some point. Either it's going to fall because someone cuts it down, or it's going to fall because of natural causes. Age through rot and decay, a storm through powerful winds, an earthquake, a flood, water, going to knock over that tree. Another person driving their car in irresponsibly and driving into the tree and knocking it down. At some point, it's going to happen, and guess what? It could fall on your house and, crash through the roof, cause damage, injure people, you name it. Um, Same goes for, more extreme weather events, tornadoes. They happen all over the world. There are more places, of course, that are prone to tornadoes than others. At some point, a tornado is going to come. It doesn't matter. Even if you live in a non-tornado area, at some point, a perfect storm situation is going to happen and a tornado could spawn. Volcanoes. We've got several going on right now that are putting people at risk. There's the Icelandic volcano, which, potentially could go towards one of their towns. And of course, it's going to destroy a road and fiber optic cables and all of that once it decides to go to the ocean. We've got the La Palma volcano that just erupted here this last week, and it's already destroyed 200 homes. You live on a volcanic island. At some point, the volcano is going to erupt. Yeah, I mean, it's just a fact. You just got to hope you're not in the right, or I should say, the wrong place at the wrong time. Forest fires. They're natural for the most part. It's sad when people cause forest fires, especially on purpose, arsonists and stuff. But at some point, lightning's going to strike, and the situation's going to just happen to where a forest fire starts. And maybe it heads towards a community, a town, and it burns it all down. And hopefully no lives are lost. But all of these things, these natural disasters and different stuff, they're going to happen. And I think that's the one thing that we all have to be aware of at all times. No matter where you live in the world, at some point, something is going to happen that will affect where you live, either by destroying your house, damaging your house, causing injury or loss of life. It's going to happen. And when it does, don't play all, but how could this happen? We've been here for blah blah years. This is unimaginable. No, it's not. It's natural. It's what actually happens in the world naturally. Um, and that sounds a little rough, I know, but it is a fact, and we have to be aware of that. And so the only thing we can really do about it when we think about it is weigh our options. You know, if you choose to buy a house next to a river, you have to expect, okay, at some point my house is going to be flooded. Am I prepared for that? Do I have flood insurance that will protect me, or my property anyways? Do I have emergency supplies? Do I have um, you know somewhere I can go if I need to for safety, that to get out of reach of the flood waters? And you just have to be prepared for it. If you live in a location that's prone to earthquakes, California, Japan, you know, Alaska, Oregon, really, it is, yes. A lot of other places as well around the world, of course. Do you have your survival kit? Do you know what to do when an earthquake starts? Do you know where to go to get out of the building, or, things like that? Uh, and you just do what you can do. You just have to be aware of it, because in the end, there's nothing you can do to stop these things. I mean, yes, man has a lot of science and we have a lot of technology, but it is limited, and we really have no control over nature overall. We can pretend that we do, and try to, prevent flooding by building dikes and seawalls, and by putting barriers up that stop avalanches, and doing all of those different things. But in the end, nature's still going to do what nature's going to do, no matter what. There's no way to change that. I guess maybe in the future, if we have total control over the Earth's weather and we can control how the weather works, then that would eliminate a lot of stuff. But still, we would also have to have control over gravity to make sure that there's never a landslide because of unstable rock, or that there's never a earthquake because plate tectonics, or a volcano is never going to erupt. I mean, right? It's impractical. No matter what, the list just grows of all the different potential things that could happen, and there's really no way that we can prevent all of them. And so we just have to kind of accept it and live along with it and be prepared to, move forward. That's our only choice. Uh, anyways, I think we're out of time on our video today, talking about the choices of where we live and the repercussions of, what could happen based on those choices. Interesting thoughts. But thank you for joining me on Fusion's Ramblings as we rambled on about disasters that could come and affect you. Hopefully they won't, but be prepared when they do. See you in the next video.